Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Helbling Day. We'll be starting shortly, seeing some activity in the chat. This is excellent. Why not tell us which city or which part of Romania you're joining us from? Lovely to see you all coming in. Wow, huge numbers this morning. Good morning, Arad, Oradea, Timișoara, Galati. Wonderful. My goodness, I think we are representing all of Romania here. This is fabulous. We're going to give it a couple of minutes to make sure that everybody can join us, and we'll be starting shortly. Good morning from Bucharest, Botoșani.
We have a lot of cities here.
A lot. I feel,
A
Simona, like
lot.
we're representing all of Romania
All of Romania. Yes, that's so nice.
on a Saturday morning as well. Thank you all for joining us on your Saturday morning. So just as everybody joins us, just a reminder, this session is being recorded. And there are lots of you this morning. My name's Charlie. I'm going to be monitoring the chat to try and make a note of your questions. But do be aware there are lots of people in this morning. So if we don't get round to answering your question today, please know that we will come back afterwards and we will make sure your questions get answered. So I'll do my best to monitor it and get everything you ask answered. Good morning, everybody. Oh, Claudia, you're very welcome. We are very glad to have you here on a Saturday morning. So the numbers are still going up, but Simona, do you want to say a few words from Fisher? Obviously, this is a joint event with Fisher and with Helbling, and everybody knows Fisher. But
Mm. Yes, thank you, Charlie. Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be with you this morning. My name is Simona Brojba, and I represent Fisher International. As some of you may already know, we are the exclusive distributor of Helbling Publishing House in Romania. Please feel free to reach out to us anytime if you'd like more information about Helbling materials, and we're always happy to help. Thank you all for being here today. That's a great number. We hope you will enjoy this event. Helping Day, you will find it useful and interesting also. We have Charlie with us, so she will stay here for the event. Charlie, I'll hand over to you. Thank you, everyone, again.
thank you, Simona, and thank you to Fisher and Helbling for putting this together. Delighted to be here and looking after you this morning for the Helbling event. Now, Helbling last year, Helbling English just celebrated 20 years, 2 decades of inspiration in English, and we're delighted to have Beatrix and Martine here with us, supporting us and working with you. Now, Helbling English have got course books, they've got readers, they have got fabulous, innovative digital material, and they've also got some of the titans of English as their authors. Some of them are going to need no introduction to you at all, names from decades of ELT experience. Helbling English as well has won awards from English Language Union and from the Eltons, so a fabulous amount of credentials. So this morning we are going to get started with the first of three presentations, and we are delighted to have Herbert Puchta. And like I say, he really needs no introduction. He's an award-winning author, teacher trainer, and has been with Helbling since the very early days when they started. He's been a plenary speaker at numerous conferences and events, and has carried out research into the practical application of findings from cognitive psychology into the English teaching realm. And he translates those findings so well into practical advice we can take back to our classrooms. He has been the president of IATEFL and a renowned author. So it's without further ado that I invite Herbert to join us to kick us off with social emotional learning with primary children. Is it more than just a bandwagon? So, Herbert, for the next 50 minutes, the floor is yours, and I pass over to you to take us through it.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Thanks everybody for joining us this morning. And I would also like to thank Helbling and Fisher for the invitation to speak today. As Charlie has said, this is all about SEL, or social emotional learning. And it's somehow, SEL is somehow becoming a buzzword in ELT. There's hardly a conference where you will not find at least a few workshops on the topic. So the question for us is it just another fad that will go away again, or is it part of an organic development in communicative language teaching? At least with children and teenagers. I believe it's the latter. I really believe it's not just a bandwagon. I think it's here to stay. And in this session, I will actually elaborate on why I think so. Yes. So this is an overview of what we are going to, cover in this, sorry about this, in this session today. I'm going to be talking about, I'm trying to define social emotional learning. I'm going to share some ideas on how we can combine key SEL concepts with efficient language teaching, and I will share a number of practical examples with you. They come from my latest course book with Helbling, and that's called Marbles. But this is not a course book presentation, obviously. We are talking about a topic that I believe is a very important one. Can I just ask you to use the chat as a way of getting into the topic and just share with us a few thoughts, a few associations that you think of when you hear the term social emotional learning. So what kind of thoughts come to mind when you hear or when you think of social emotional learning? Just a few words in the chat, please. Empathy, inclusion, lovely. Thank you very much. Well-being, learner well-being, and also teacher well-being. Joy. Yes, interaction in the classroom, tolerance, acceptance, learning how to use language to recognize and convey emotions. Empathy, inclusion, interaction, well-being, social awareness, inclusion, relationship skills, empathy, cooperation, well-being, tolerance, empathy. Wow, this goes so fast. Acquiring the skills to manage emotions, being happy to be in class and learn, well-being, learning in a safe and comfortable way, mindfulness, empathy and inclusion. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. So obviously, quite a number of you have some solid understanding of what social emotional learning is all about. This is a quotation that I came across recently by Salem. It's a bit of a mouthful, as you can see, but I think it's nevertheless worth stopping for a moment and looking at it, I think what's driving, because the question really is why is cell, or why does it seem to be so important these days? Why is it actually, or has it become a buzzword in ELT? And here is one possible answer. I think what's driving demand for cell is the times we live in. The deep fractures in societies for different reasons, and the space for reasonable conversation seems to be disappearing. And people are building walls instead of trying to find common ground. I think teachers deal with that every day in communities, whether it's bullying, whether it's countries that are struggling to take in citizens, or just temporarily relocating citizens from countries that are war-torn, refugees or migrants. Everyone is struggling with some aspect of how do we create more inclusive communities. And I believe that, well, I mean, the phenomena that Salem is talking about here are not only noticeable on a daily basis, but it's also, of course, that children and teenagers also notice them and are confronted with them. So in a way, this hasn't become an easier world for our young people. And I have a strong belief that as language teachers, we're not just the ones who make sure that our students develop a good command of vocabulary and lexis and grammar and skills and what have you. We are also educators, and I believe we live in a day and age where the teacher as an educator, this role of the teacher as an educator is becoming more and more important. So CEL has been defined as an approach to teaching that helps develop young learners' well-being, as several of you have said, while at the same time not forgetting about their academic performance. This is something I'd like to stress. CEL is not about what I call flower power teaching. Okay, we have to be nice, we have to be kind, we have to think positive, and everything will be all right. CEL looks at both at children's well-being, at inclusion, at integration of learners, and at the same time also at what they achieve. By focusing on a positive classroom culture, empathy, as several of you, and then there we go into more into the area or the realm of academic performance. It's also about self-management, not only about managing one's own feelings, but also, for example, about managing time, managing resources, etc., etc. It's about empathy. Several people have mentioned that. So social awareness, relationship skills, and also gradually responsible decisions. All those things are not competencies that and support from the teacher. I'd like to tell you a little anecdote about myself. The photo I think of me in with learners in that class.
Hi there, Herbert. Have we got you back?
Hi, I'm sorry about this. So
It was going so
I'm
well. It was going
back,
so well,
and
and
I'm back with my.
unfortunately, the sound is not brilliant. We can't hear
Thank
you
you.
terribly well.
Would you like to come
Oh, I'm
back?
really
To leave
sorry.
come back, Herbert.
I can hear you so well.
Now it's
Well,
better. Now it's better. Eh? It's improving.
better.
Yes, yes, yes. So
Okay.
try again. Don't worry.
Okay.
Try again.
Thanks. So I was teaching. This is not obviously a primary class. I was teaching this group of secondary students, and um, I had been teaching them for 3.5 years when I got an invitation to become a university teacher. So I was teaching in this small
Herbert,
town where I, yes,
sorry, we lost
yes.
presentation. I cannot see it at least. I don't know the rest, but if you can share
Yes,
the screen
neither
again.
can I. And
Yes,
we perhaps a good idea to make the best of the broadband is perhaps if Herbert we closed off the video
exactly.
so that we're focusing on the slides.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can share the screen again and turn off the video.
I am sharing the screen. I am sharing the screen. Let
Sure,
me go
stop it
back.
again and yeah.
Can you hear me again now?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Uh, okay. Share. Can
Again,
you?
yes. Yes, now we can see the presentation. So just, sharing mode and
Okay, lovely.
let's continue. The show must go on.
Thank you. Okay, I apologize for that. Bit of not in Europe, and
There we are.
unfortunately, the connection here is not too brilliant. So anyway, I had been teaching this class of adolescents for 3.5 years when I got the invitation to become a university teacher. So I had to make a decision from basically one day to the next whether I was going to accept this invitation, and I did. So I found myself in front of my group of learners that I had been teaching for 3.5 years. And I told them that this was actually our last lesson together. And their reaction was quite sad, to be honest. And sit in a circle of chairs, and let's have a chat about the 3.5 years together. And then a girl raised her hand, and she was actually one of the best learners in class. And she said, when you started teaching our class, I thought you were a cold and grumpy person. And I was shocked, to be honest, because I don't think I'm a grumpy person and I don't think I'm a cold person either. But what had happened, on reflection, I discovered that when I had entered the class for the first time, when I had just entered the classroom, I wasn't really aware of how important that moment was for my students. In other words, I was maybe distracted, maybe I was a bit stressed, I was thinking of something else. And I wasn't aware in that very moment that, as they say, we never get a second chance to create a good first impression. Well, fortunately, I managed to create a very good relationship with that class. And I gradually became more and more aware that I wasn't just responsible for teaching the, I don't know, the present continuous. I was also an educator, and in many that's worth thinking about. It is about joy, it is about well-being, and it is also about balancing a positive classroom atmosphere with, as I said, a focus on the students' academic performance. So we could talk about the teacher as a tightrope walker here. Nan Gao, a colleague from an Australian university, says that when teachers focus more on academics and fail to create a positive social learning environment, students are likely to be emotionally disengaged and worried about making mistakes. Contrarily, when teachers focus more on the social dimension and neglect the intellectual dimension, students possibly experience low cognitive engagement for learning. Marilee Sprenger, in her book Social Emotional Learning and the Brain, says that every child has a story. And this story includes experiences from very early on throughout their lives so far, from their time as babies and toddlers, the emotional warmth they felt or part of, the remarks relevant others like parents and grandparents and other people in their close proximity made about them, and the praise or lack of it they received. All this has a huge effect on them, whether or not they remember those events. And then there are, of course, the beliefs they have sensed that those relevant others have about them. Many of those beliefs may have become their own beliefs by now. So if a mother or a father have very positive beliefs about their child, the child's own belief system about themselves will become stronger, of course. But we are also talking, unfortunately, we're also talking negative beliefs. And the story, of course, goes on, and it then includes you, if you are a primary teacher, and it includes the time the children spend with you, the relationships you manage to create with them, the way those children behave and think and feel and learn, the trust they have in others and in themselves. All that is influenced in one way or another. But the beautiful thing is that if we are a primary teacher, we have an opportunity, Marilee Sprenger says, to help the child rewrite some of those stories, maybe write a new chapter in that storybook that is their own storybook. And that's what I believe unique about a teacher, and especially a language teacher, that we can help once. It's quite interesting that there is empirical research that SEL, if done properly, and if done in such a way, you remember the metaphor of the teacher as a tightrope walker, if it's done in such a way that the teacher also combines social emotional learning with a focus on academic performance, then SEL improves academic achievement by an average of 11%, increases appropriate social behavior, improves students' attitudes, and reduces depression and stress. And this is not something that is only valid and the case in the young learners classroom, in the primary learners classroom. It's also something, of course, that is important when you are a teacher of teenagers. So I'd like to just share a few practical thoughts. The first one on creating a positive classroom culture. I hope you can see this little video. There's quite a few of those videos, or a few examples of similar videos out there on the web. What this shows is basically a teacher who is waiting for the children as they come to class in the morning. And she's put up this little chart here, a heart, which stands for a hug, a hand, which is all about a high five, a handshake, as you can see, or a fist bump. And as students come in, she's waiting for them there. And students point at one of these symbols here, and then by doing so, they select a little ritual that they act out together with the teacher. Okay, so I hope this video is playing and you can also hear the sound.
Herbert, it might be a good idea to turn your own video off. That might help with some of the bandwidth,
I'll
if
do
that's
that
possible.
immediately if it's
Thank you.
possible.
Sorry for the interruption.
No, it's fine, but I need to go out of the presentation again in order to be able to do that. Shall we risk that? Because, as I said, for whatever reason, I can't switch off the
Okay,
video.
maybe we leave it as it is. Just there are some times when we lose the sound,
Yeah,
your commentary. But
I'm really sorry.
no, not at all. Sorry to interrupt. Please carry on.
So this look at this piece of evidence. It's really amazing. A recent study suggests that greeting and welcoming students each morning increased in this way. Okay, increased achievement by 20% and lowered disruptive behaviors by 18. That's why I suggested to Helbling that with Marbles, our new course, we actually have this welcome chart with several icons here. Try this out. So children can select whether they want to do a crazy little dance with the teacher. This is a bow, a handshake. It's all about a hug. It's just waving and oops, sorry. No, this is a high five. Sorry, and the last one here is a crazy little dance. Okay, so it's of course also about showing them that we care, and we can do that in many different ways. These are four suggestions here. The first one, showing an interest in the children, not just as learners, but as human beings. So this is about asking questions, engaging them in small talk, remembering things that they tell you about themselves. So we show them that we are really interested in them and not just in their learning and their learning outcomes. We need to give them emotional support. So if we expect our learners to learn to develop empathy, the ability to put themselves in other people's shoes, we need to show them what it's like to give emotional support. We need to show them what it's like to take people seriously as human beings. And this is also about how we talk to children. So just a few examples here. These are modeled on what I learned from a book called How to Listen to Children so Children Will Speak, and How to Speak to Children so Children Will Listen. It's a lovely book. It's not the most recent publication, and it's not about ELT. It's just about talking to children in general. So here, if a student says, I failed my maths test, we could, of course, say, well, you probably didn't study enough. Next time, study better. A different way that acknowledges the student's feelings is, that must be difficult for you. I'm sorry to hear that. Or if a student says, my friends don't want me in the football team or whatever, we could say, don't worry, I'm sure that's just a phase. But what's much better in terms of showing empathy is that we say, I'm sorry you're going through this. Call them by their name, that's clear anyway. I just wanted to mention it here again. And another thing I use quite regularly when I get a chance to teach a group for a longer time is a so-called group reward system. Rather than rewarding children individually, I'm using a group reward system. So since this course book is called Marbles, what I have here is for my class a bag with marbles. And whenever a learner does something that is great, I ask them to pick a marble from that bag and put it in the jar in this glass here. When the glass is full, I tell them when the glass is full, I will give them a surprise present. And the present will be, I don't know, I'll play a video to them, or I play a game with them, a game they like, or I tell them a story, or what have you. The key thing is that in this way, when a learner gets a reward, it doesn't trigger off sadness with some kids who don't get rewards so often. You know, one of the problems with giving individual rewards is that they may create social differences in a class. So here, whenever a learner, I've noticed that whenever a learner gets a reward in the form of one of those marbles, the other kids will applaud. They will give them a big hand because they feel, hey, great, we're coming closer to our goal of getting a teacher. Okay, and of course now we've spoken about atmosphere, we've spoken about empathy, we've spoken about rewarding, but let's also have a look at a few practical examples, of how combining SEL with efficient language teaching. Well, the first one is self-management, and this is about learning to manage time, it's about learning to manage behavior, and it's about learning to cope with stress also in a certain way. I'm going to focus on one aspect here, and that is time. We know what it's like when you, for example, tell your class, I want you to write a short text about, I don't know, your pet or breakfast in your family or what have you, something you have taught. There is also a unit maybe you have taught, and now you want to engage them in a bit of writing, and you ask them to write down a short text, write a few sentences. And the teacher says, okay, I'll give you 4 minutes for that. And then you notice after 3 minutes that some kids have raised their hands, finished, while others maybe haven't even started yet. And this is because children often don't have good time management yet. So we can support them a little bit by writing on the board. You've still got And then you leave a gap in minutes. So initially it will be you've still got 4 minutes. Then after 1 minute, I delete the four and I put the three there, etc., etc. So there is a countdown, and they get a feel for time, and you will notice an immediate effect on the way they are working. I was not too long ago when my own grandson started to teach to attend primary school. I was a little bit worried because we live in the middle of nowhere in the Austrian countryside, and the primary school that he attends or was going to attend is an excellent school, but they're not really well known or famous for their quality of teaching English. So I decided to pull a few strings, and I spoke to the ministry and I said, "Look, guys, my own grandson is going to start school in September, and I would actually like to teach his class in English. I'll do that for free. You don't need to pay me anything." But in Austria, primary schools, state primary schools only have 1 hour of English a week. I said I want at least 3 hours a week, and to my great delight, they said yes immediately, probably because I said I'm not going to charge you. So I had the pleasure of teaching this group of 6-year-olds for 4 years, actually, from 6 to 10. In Austria, primary is from 6 to 10. And one of the first things, not surprisingly, I noticed was that children so often fell back into their own language, into their mother tongue. We basically all the children had the same mother tongue, okay? German, of course, in that case. So, of course, I tried everything, to encourage them to speak English, etc., etc. And then it was the second year of my teaching of that group, and we were in the middle of an activity, and I noticed that they didn't stick, although I had told them, good, it had developed well already. But there was this constant kind of like falling back into their mother tongue. And I had this spontaneous idea, and I'd actually like to share this with you, and I'd like to encourage you to try this out. What I did was I took out my mobile phone, and I switched on the stopwatch on the mobile phone, the timer, and I said to them, "Look, let's try out how long you can actually manage to speak English only." So I'm going to start my watch now, and I'm going to observe you, and I'll stop it again as soon as somebody starts speaking German. Okay? And they were very enthusiastic. I actually started my clock, my timer there, and 7 seconds later, somebody spoke German. So I stopped it again, and they were all disappointed. I said, "No, don't worry, we can try again. Let's try to do it longer this time." And so at the end of this class, I think it was maybe 40 seconds or so. I took a piece of paper and I wrote on it, and I put that on the wall of the classroom, "Our world record in speaking English." And then I put a little adhesive label, and it was 42 seconds or what have you. Well, the great thing was that they really loved this. They reminded me when I forgot to actually take out my mobile phone. They several times reminded me to do that, and to actually check how long they were able to speak English. They also reminded each other. So, for example, I remember when one kid raised his hand and he wanted to say something, several of the kids said, "But please speak English." So it had a very, very positive effect on their ability, their management skills in terms of what language they were using, and on policemen in the classroom all the time and tell them to please speak English. Empathy. I like this quotation. Comes from Theodore Roosevelt. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's, of course, something that is extremely important for us as teachers. This empathy is partly about supporting them emotionally, but it's also about having fun together. We must not forget that. The systems in the brain, Bruce Perry, a brain researcher, says, that mediate pleasure appear to be closely connected to the systems that mediate emotional relationships. Indeed, this interrelationship, the capacity to get pleasure from other people, creates a major positive learning tool of infancy and childhood. Young children want to please their teachers. They model adults and children they admire. So this is why having fun together is so important, because having fun together actually has a very, very positive effect on the learning systems in our brain, okay? And having fun with others, of course, can be done in many different ways. One is songs. I'm not sure if this will work in terms of video and audio. I'll just play a few seconds maybe. And I'm asking the colleagues from Fisher to tell me immediately when it actually can't be heard or seen well. Here we go.
Go to the shops, there's lots of food to buy. My mother wants a lot of and one chicken pie. Let's go to the shops, there's lots of food to see. My dad wants 2 big burgers and a cup of tea. Pizza, pizza is my favorite thing. Pizza, pizza, come on now, let's sing. Pizza, pizza is my favorite thing. Pizza, pizza, come on now, let's sing. Let's go to the shops.
I hope we could hear that. I also hope you like the song. Just to make one's point out one thing here. This is, of course, not about promoting junk food. It's really about accepting that children do not only want to eat healthy food, they occasionally also eat something that is sweet or that is junk food, but it's certainly a song that kids will love. Well, being kind to each other is also about paying each other compliments. And that's something that we can do as a little interactive activity in class, where kids walk around and they pay each other compliments, and they do that in English. And you will see that at the end of such an activity, they are smiling. Another example, can and can't for ability. That's normally, of course, used and taught in a frame of I can do this, I can't do that, etc. And that is, of course, important and also important linguistically. But there is also another thing that one can do when thinking about can and can't for ability. And that is when somebody says, I can't do something, then in a way, and psychologically speaking, they are a bit vulnerable because we often don't feel very good about the things that we can't do. Okay. So here we have these two mini stories, if you like, or mini situations in A. This girl here says, I can't paint, and the other one starts laughing and says, no, you can't paint. Okay. So a cynical reaction, while here we have, I can't skip. And the other ones, it's okay, you can, it's okay, you can do it, I can help you. And so we can help kids. So this is about values, isn't it? We can help kids to decide what's okay, what's not okay. And kids can be, as we know, they can be cruel. They can be cynical with each other. So it's just a little pointer that we can use here in connection with can and can't, and they can play out quite creative here. I would like to talk for a moment, since we're talking can and can't. For a moment, I'd like to talk about the importance of the characters we use in our videos. For children, they are extremely important because these characters are models, not just models of language, but also models of behavior, creativity, etc., etc. So I just hope you will be able to see this short video. So this is from a unit on pets, and as I said, the language here, among other things, is can and can't. So she's talking about her pet and what it can do. Okay, here we go.
Hello, I'm Jenny, and I'm from Brighton, in England. Look, this is Brighton. Brighton is cool. This is my cat, Simba. Hello, Simba. She can talk. How some boys. Simba, the cat. Meow. What pet have you got?
And of course, with kids, we can then go into a phase where they have fun and they create images of pets, or bring photos to class of their pets if they have a pet, and then they can talk about their pet. But if they want, they can also go into she can or he can talk or do many other things, whatever they want. This is great fun for learners. I am aware of the time. I am aware that I cannot cover all the things I wanted to cover. So I'm going to just maybe focus on this one more aspect and then finish the talk. So you got or you are getting a shorter version because of the technical problems we had. I apologize for that. So decision making is something that is important, and decision making, of course, is something that is not easy for children. But there's one thing: in order for them to make decisions, we actually need to give them choices. Okay, so this can be done in a way that actually is safe for kids and that they can make choices and the choices can be meaningful. So, for example, very small choices. Do you want to practice the dialogue in the dialogues in pairs first? So that's an easy choice. Or go through the last 3 units we have done. Which song would you like to sing again now? So they go through the 3 units, they choose a song, and then we do a vote in class. So they've made a choice, and we sing the one song that they have chosen. Either or choices. Would you like, for example, if you have sort of workbook exercises that you do in class, would you like to do exercise 3 or 4 first? So that's not a huge choice, but you will notice when children can make choices, they somehow start to partially own their learning process, and that is something that is very important. Would you like to act out the role plays now or at the end of the lesson? Or you invite individual students to make choices. For example, there's 5 minutes at the end of the lesson, and you left still, so you can ask a child, Tom, would you like to decide what we're doing in these 5 minutes? It can be a game. You want to choose, you can choose it for the whole class. Just make sure it needs to be something that is meaningful in terms of us using English. Okay? And of course, in another class, it can be another child. It will not always be the same child. So let me actually jump these things. And I just like to finish off with my favorite Garfield cartoon. So this is Garfield, and he's just finding out about his incredible capability to stand on his hind legs. And he says, I wonder if I could stand on just 2 feet. Hey, this is great. I'm standing. And he's becoming even more courageous now. He says, now I can tap dance and I can reach the tabletop. Well, in comes his teacher, or it's not his teacher, his master, and says, Garfield, cats can't walk on their hind feet. And we can see the immediate outcome of this pedagogical intervention. Garfield falls flat on his face, smack, and the teacher says, see? And Garfield doesn't say anything, but he has. So this is a little reminder of the fact that as teachers of young learners, our beliefs in them have or influence the way they learn and the outcomes of their learning. And we have kids who don't have the strongest beliefs about themselves. It's especially with those kids that the teacher can make a difference. If we believe that they can actually achieve more than they themselves believe they can do, then I think we're doing everything we can, or we're doing a very important thing in terms of taking seriously both their social emotional learning and at the same time also focus on the academic side of the learning process. And this was Billy Cox, a famous American bass player. He was in the Jimi Hendrix band, and he says he wasn't a teacher, but he said something about teaching. Teach your children to dream big, that the sky is the limit, and that anything is possible if they want it bad enough. I'd like to thank you very much for joining in. I'll stop sharing my presentation, and I'm giving the mic back to Charlie.
Herbert, thank you so much, and a fabulous presentation about how we can develop our students' confidence and learning styles as well as their language. Thank you, particularly in the face of such technical difficulties. Now, we do have one question that came through on the Q&A area, which asks, it's Ada who is asking, where does the role of the parents end and where does the role of the teacher begin? It seems like a lot of these skills need to also be addressed by parents. So thank you, Ada, for that question. Herbert.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Eva, for this question. I think it's an extremely important one. Well, let me just briefly go back to my own experience of teaching my grandson's class. What I noticed was a huge interest that came from parents, especially, for example, during the COVID phase, because I was teaching the class online. And since many of the parents were at home, they were watching the lessons. So they took a back seat, so to speak, and they were watching what I was doing with the kids. And then they had lots of questions. So I actually organized 2 or 3 Zoom sessions with the parents where they could ask me questions about the way I was teaching, because you can imagine that this was so different from the parents themselves had learned English when they were younger. So that's one key aspect that I believe we have a role not only to train learners. It's not only about learner training. In a way, it's also about parent training, helping or facilitating parent awareness of how we teach, so to speak. And that is a way, for me, it was an excellent way of getting in touch with parents and creating rapport with parents. You are absolutely right that many of the things that I mentioned today, such as empathy, helping learners create positive beliefs about themselves, etc., 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 all those things should be done and ideally would be done by parents also. But of course, we live in a real world. We know that in many families, this is maybe not the case. Influence that directly, but what we can do is once we have established rapport, and of course, this requires the teacher who wants to establish rapport, but also parents who are keen on having a good interaction with the teacher. But if we manage to do that, or at least with some of the parents, then it's maybe easier to also talk about educational topics. And this is how I tend to do it. I think, unfortunately, in today's world, or maybe never also in history, a teacher could take for granted that all parents would kind of give children the support, also the emotional support they would need. Thank you for the question, Eva.
Thank you, Herbert. And I think in interest of time, we will wrap that up. But loved the practical ideas, particularly that beautiful poster from the marble series. That's a great idea. I would love to have that up in my classroom. And also the idea of giving, small choices, small amount of autonomy where possible. So that's brilliant. And also there is a fabulous book in the Helbling Resourceful Teacher series called Seeds of Confidence, which is a great one to reference as well. So Herbert, a massive thank you from all of us, particularly with all the technical struggles. Well done for working through them. And we will now take a 5-minute break. Everybody can pop to the bathroom, grab a coffee, and we will return very shortly with our next speaker, Chris Jory. But Herbert, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure, and thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.